The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple, and welcome to our special session today. Obviously, special session because today is the U.S. presidential election. Obviously, the other things as well, but everything right now is nothing but again, election. So we're going to do things a little bit differently today. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of speed through. It's going to be a shorter session because again, there's so much kind of unknown that will unfold in the next 24 hours. That we're going to kind of highlight some of the biggest things that we need to focus on. And again, leave a lot of the other analysis off because, again, the uncertainty is just so high. Again, I don't want to waste anybody's time today. I just want to give you the most pertinent information and kind of move on from there. So first things first, let's go into kind of, again, the people that have been here before, you guys know who I am. I'm the president and CEO of Keep Trading Simple. I've been doing this since about 2000, so this is not the first time that I've seen kind of extreme volatility situations, right? Not the first election I've traded through. I've seen tech bubbles and housing bubble, booms and busts. And, I was definitely trading part of the last election, right? The craziness that ensued in there. And again, for me, it's one of those things that I want to make sure that every single week you guys take something away from this. Today's a little bit harder, a little bit more challenging on my side. And again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that, again, we are, we're smack in the middle of an election. So, I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is a big polarizing event. And will obviously have some vast reaching effects inside of the market. Before we begin and start talking about charts and really kind of dive into things, I do want to cover a quick Nadex risk disclaimer. Trading on Nadex involves risk and may not be appropriate for all investors. Trading can be volatile and investors risk losing the cost of their transaction, including fees. The information presented within this presentation is for informational and education purposes only and should not be considered an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any financial instrument on Nadex or elsewhere. Now, any trading decisions that you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. And Nadex contracts are based on underlying asset classes, including Forex, stock index futures, and commodity futures. Nadex is a registered trademark of the IG Group. Now, normally what we do is cover upcoming news events. I think everybody knows what the upcoming news event is right now. I'm going to dive into Indices because that's really what's driving the market today and the election. I'm going to mention Forex just a very, very minor bit today because the U.S. dollar is just, it's trying to go down as fast as it possibly can, and it's having some, it's having great success. It's having some great success. And then also I'll briefly mention commodities because oil for the last week has been straight down and it's finally getting a little bit of a reprieve, kind of popping back up again. And I'll cover those three. So again, it will be an abbreviated session today. Again, starting next week, we'll be back to the kind of the full breakdown of multiple different things, and I want to kind of mix some new things in next week as well. So you want to make sure that you guys catch that one. But let me just dive right in, and I'm going to pull probably the easiest way to kind of get an overall look at kind of what's happening today is, again, obviously it is dominated by this. All day presidential elections. The East Coast where I'm at, voting's been open for a few hours, and obviously we're not going to start getting it even kind of beginning polls or anything like that until a little bit later today. But you can see up top, you can see that for the most part, and again, as I mentioned that dollar thing, you can see the dollar versus the euro getting hammered, versus the pound getting even more hammered. Yen is down versus the Swiss are down versus the CAD, we are down huge. And even though for the last, hour, we've seen kind of an uptick, right? It's still down 115, which is an absolutely enormous day, right? Aussie, same thing. Weakness, this thing is just on fire, skyrocketing higher. Euro pound, you can see there's a little bit of movement, and again, it is showing pound strength, and there's some data down there that we need to watch out for. And again, pound yen also up big versus obviously because of the yen in there. Now, one thing I will mention before I jump into all the presidential election and kind of why I highlighted the euro pound. Remember the news that we heard last week, Brexit, right? They're saying that we could come into a full agreement in the early November. Well, we're early November. It could literally kick in any day right now. So we're seeing a lot of movement. And if you look down here, you're starting to see some kind of chatter back and forth between, the ECB and, talking about the pound. And again, we're talking about, it's back to 130 ahead of U.S. elections. Can it hold? And, you're seeing this, just really start to move here. So as far as the biggest bit of news as far as Brexit is concerned, because again, Brexit is also an absolutely enormous trading event that we have to keep our eye on. Again, right here, Britain has not replied, and I'll click on it real quick so you can see the link. Says trade talks with Britain has not replied in time the EU letter concerning breach of withdrawal agreement. Right? Remember they said that they had some problems with that, and again, I didn't expect there to be one, but again, a little bit of chatter back and forth there. and again, could strain some of the early Brexit talks, but that will be a huge market mover. Obviously, a little bit a while ago, we can see that the U.S. markets are rallying. Again, presidential election results. Now they're saying the election result, it's already been priced in. I don't know that you could technically price anything in at this point. I believe last election was kind of the same thing, right? There was a lot of belief that, everything was already priced in and the market was going straight down, right? And then all of a sudden at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, it turned and then skyrocketed higher. I don't feel like that was proof that it was priced in. So I think things like this are a little bit premature, saying that everything is already decided. I mean, if it was decided, we wouldn't have an election. So there are still some things out there that are unknown, right? Until the final ballot is settled, and concession speeches are read, I don't know that the market can prepare for this exactly. Very challenging times right now. And again, one candidate is very pro-business, one candidate is kind of anti-stock market. So kind of see where this, again, a lot of unknowns. All right. Let's dive now. Let's go right over. And again, let me show you another chart of the dollar index. I want you guys to kind of get an idea, because the dollar is extremely important in a lot of different trading features. Again, as the dollar gets weaker, exports are better. But overall, the dollar is a great way to look at kind of how the world globally are looking at the United States. Okay. This is not necessarily the most favorable day today. You guys can see, from basically yesterday being up here at 94, dropping all the way down to 93.60. This is quite a bit of movement in a very short period of time. Now, bringing this up a little bit higher, let's bring this up to like kind of a 4 hour to get a better look. As you can see, I mean, it's not that a drop like this is a huge deal. I mean, it happens, right? But this big kind of putting in this little kind of feather to go higher here is signifying that, hey, listen, we're pushing lower. Now, we are at an area right here where we did see some buyers, right? Previously in the past, it's stopped and been a rally point. I feel like we're starting to pause. And again, could it be a reversal point? Yeah, it could be, maybe, right? But for the most part, it looks like we're going to probably start pushing a little bit lower. So globally, they don't, I would guess the quote market, right, globally, it isn't kind of looking at the U.S. economy as a favorable situation right now based off of having the election today. So again, this is quite a large move. There's a couple different areas in here that we could see kind of bounces off of. Again, buyers have stepped in here, 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 here. Nice little base here. And again, this one has technically been pushed a little bit low. But remember, the market does two things: impulse move, correction move. And will its impulse be back down, or will it start to stabilize in here and then start to rally back up again? Is the big question. Now, is 12 o'clock in the afternoon the ideal time to, decide if that's the case? Probably not. Like I said, we're not really getting reliable and consistent polls back yet. We don't know, right? We don't know anything yet, right? So until we start seeing those, this is kind of what people are thinking was going to happen. But if anything deviates from that plan, this thing could, drastically move back and forth. Now, you guys hear me talk about the curve all the time. I would say I'd be using this as the curve right now. It's kind of my top and bottom section. Right now, again, we are sitting kind of in that no man's land in the middle. So again, be a bit cautious with this one, of how you're going to trade it. Again, we come up high, I'd be looking to start taking some shorts. We come low back into this area where buyers have stepped in. Also good areas where we could get involved, right? So let me go over and let's start looking at some of the indices here. So NQ, you can see as of this morning, I mean, this is quite a large bounce, right? Here's where the U.S. market opened today. And you can see it basically shot straight up. Now, since that time, there's a pattern that we recognize a little bit more. Now, we had mentioned a couple areas here and said we would have a very difficult time really finding an area where to go short. But 11,417 was one of the areas we were looking at. As we can see, there's an area up here in the 30 that's quite large. We're kind of hitting a zone right now, and it's kind of interesting looking at this. Even if I drop it down, say, to the 5-minute, one of the patterns that we talk about is this. Oops, let me change the color of this real quick. Put it in this color. This is a pattern we talk about all the time, right? A failure to go higher type situation. Now, this is what we would call a parabolic extension, right? A parabolic move. I mean, all of a sudden, boom, U.S. market opens. This thing just skyrockets higher. Now, is that to be expected? Sure, right? I mean, it is a U.S. election. This is a very big election, right? A very heated election. So you expect it to be a lot of movement here. Now, things that could cause this, Well, a lot of people were pretty negative on what the stock market would do in this election. Well, when everybody out there is trying to short it, right? Typically the market goes high, right? Because it's like, oh, I want to get short, and then boom, 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 stopping all these people out to the top side. And then all of a sudden up top, it's like, well, wait a second, we thought we were negative. Maybe we were wrong. Maybe it's going to be a positive thing. And then they start doing the other thing. They start going long, and that's where we start seeing it chopping back down again. I wouldn't be surprised if this continues to push back down and retraces back lower, right? And again, after this type of move, this is the definition of our parabolic retracement strategy, right? That kind of decent top in there. And again, on the 5-minute, I really like the candle formation. At this point, again, you've already kind of gotten into it. You would have almost gotten to your 1 to 3 risk reward ratio to the downside. But again, it's kind of right there. And once we clear this base, I don't really see a whole lot coming, kind of below in this area here. So again, looking for this one probably to come back lower by the end of the day today. And, any type of results that could do this one, any type of new polls, any type of speeches, one of the battleground states kind of flipping when, we didn't think it was going to flip that way. Any of those things could be a catalyst for this to roll over. And again, really change the way that the NQ moves today. Just keep in mind, too, a lot of the polls that we see aren't necessarily going to be the correct ones. They could be, right? They absolutely could be. But if you think back to some of the biggest decisions we've had based off of polls, Brexit, the poll was wrong. Venezuela, poll was wrong. Last election, the polls were wrong. Okay? So some of the polls that we see today, if they come back and the result doesn't match the poll, that's where the volatility is going to start kicking in. So I like this one more negative. The S&P, you can see we took a good bounce. Last week, we were talking about this level at 33.21 and 32.31. You can see we tagged it once, tagged it twice, tagged it 3 times. So we hit both sides of this many, many times. And as you guys know, right, they're only good for so many shots at this point. If I extend it across, you guys can see it's right off of the top of that candle right here. Okay. As you can see, you should recognize this pattern, right? A come up, again, 1, 2, 3, number 4, based in the zone. There's your punch through for momentum. There's your pullback. And then there's your explosion right off the top. So right now, I would say that if I'm going to use kind of this level as our daily curve right now, we are kind of in the upper quadrant, right? So it's kind of setting up the same way. It's high. Is it at the best turnaround point? Not really. I mean, I like the candles. I like the formation. If anything over here, I mean, again, looking at this on a 15-minute, kind of making it similar to what we're looking for the NQ. I would say retracing this one back down again also looks very, very probable, right? I mean, again, you can see that we did put a new high in, right? There was your new high. It gave us a retest, and it wasn't the ideal retest, but it's still a level if we pop up a little bit more. Again, getting a rollover. Having this thing come back down again, I think could be a decent trade today. Again, bringing it back down. That's the last time we saw buyers was really sitting over here in the 33.40 range. And again, this could be any type of swing state, anything could really turn this around real quick. All right. Looking across at the Dow. So the Dow is also set up in a similar situation. This one as well, I think will roll in the same kind of manner. This one does not have the buyer sitting below. Now, this was a pretty big move, and I'm on a 15-minute chart, so obviously it's extended a little bit, but coming from 27,265 all the way up, you can see that's quite a lot of movement, a little over 250 points to the top side. It does not have the same kind of top / formation that we typically like. But what do we see now? I mean, if I drop it down to a 5-minute, you can see kind of let me adjust that, bring this back up. You can kind of see that it keeps reaching, and it's slightly higher. Like this was a decent base here, right? This was a decent base. And then we came up and touched it again, and I like that candle. And this one went just a little bit higher. And what's it doing? Now it's stabilized from the downside from here. So it's kind of the same thinking. I mean, if you want to, if you're looking for a place that there's some decent entries in, probably, and again, do it off of your charts, right? Use the bottom of this, the wick here, but approximately around 27,470 looks like an area where we may get some kind of push to the downside. Now, how do you play it? That's a great question, all right? This is obviously a parabolic move. There is a little bit of a kind of a little speed bump over here, all right? So the way that I would set this one up, and again, if we bounce and go much higher, great, no harm, no foul, we haven't gotten in. Today's a day about getting confirmation on any of our entries, right? I would set this up. I'd look for the Harry Potter break, a push down, and again, it will most likely bounce off of this level, right? Push back up again, and then look for that short in that one. And again, The 1 to 5 in this situation, or the 1 to 3 is fine. The 1 to 5 is actually fine as well. And I think if this does start to roll over, if it can't find any more buyers willing to step in, I do feel like the Dow will take a very fast tumble and kind of roll over back to the downside. So I feel like this one can move pretty quickly. And again, this one is always kind of to the negative side. This one is always kind of the most sensitive of the three. All right. Now, gold is another interesting story here. Obviously, gold has been having some movement today. Let me move this gray. Remember, the gray is. Hold on. Let me select the gray. Move to the right. The gray is kind of the curve for what we're using for buys and sells right now, right? We weren't looking to do much kind of in this middle area here. We're really looking for. Let's change this to white. Maybe you can see that a little bit better. No, it went the other way. Either way, you can see up top. So where we are right now, let me drop this down to an hourly. So we've had a sell up here at 1910 for a couple, I don't know, about a week now, 2 weeks now. And you can see we've kind of got a little entry here, a little entry, touch, and again, strong movement off. So gold kind of going back and forth here doesn't necessarily surprise me, right? It's a little bit, from where we are. Let's see here. There's just a little bit more there so we can see it. Let's move this right there. All right. There we go. As you can see, we're getting back up into that upper quadrant, again, where we're looking for sells, okay? This is a lot of movement. And again, why is gold moving? It's purely speculation. There was no news releases this morning. There was no reads on inflation. The dollar getting weaker, obviously, is one of the things that drives gold a little bit higher as well. But for the most part, this is pure speculation that it's coming, right? What is coming? I don't know, but speculators feel like this is where gold's going to go higher. With that said, we've had this 1910 has been an area we've been looking to kind of get short from up in this area. The way that this one is established is, again, maybe a little bit more of a bounce higher, and we can get in, and it would look something along those lines. Now, this would be taking it from the upper third back into kind of no man's land, which would be fine. The 1 to 3 target, I'm probably okay with that one. Again, I think there's going to be a little bit of a hiccup over here, approximately around 1898. The 1 to 5, if we can clear the speed bump, the 1 to 5 coming down here at 1891 is probably not a horrible idea either. Let me drop it down a little bit lower and kind of get real small on us. All right, so yeah, the 1 to 3 is probably fine. Now look at this. Punch up, seller stepped in and punched it down. It tried again, got pushed back. Again and pushed back. If this is where the failure to go higher comes in, again, this is where the rollover will occur today. Do I think gold, again, I've been kind of on the more of the bearish gold side as far as like big picture goes, right? Again, I've been waiting for this to retrace, but I've been looking to find shorts here. And again, we had some great shorts over in this area. This chop in the last day, 2 days, I didn't participate in any of this right here. Again, I was not going to get into gold the day before the election, but I did like all these shorts here. And this is the last time that we really had true sellers stepping in. That's the area we're approaching. So again, seeing some fireworks come on this one, I would say, hey, listen, this is probably not bad. If we can come up, because again, this has been touched a few times, and if we do break through the top, my next area of selling comes in at 1926, and I absolutely love that as far as sells go. Again, very high, kind of at the extreme reaches of the curve. There was a base, a drop, a base below, and one retest, only one, and that's what started this entire chain off again. So I do like 1926 as well. Now, silver has been, it's kind of moved. I wouldn't say that silver has been, let's see if I can move this over. I wouldn't say that silver has been, I don't know, the best trader. Last week it was down 3.9%. Gold was only down 1.9%. So it wasn't like it was anything, crazy movement. And you can see on here on the hourly, is it launching itself higher? No, not really. Not at all, really. I mean, it's just little, chop. So silver is kind of waiting for something. I don't know what they're waiting for, but it's, it's still sitting there. But I think 24.42, I think is still a decent level. Again, looking at this on the larger time frames, again, I'm still using this kind of frame top to bottom. And again, coming back into this 24, you can see that there's some decent sellers in here. Again, this is the cleanest movement we have, yet. And again, kind of a rollover back to the downside. I just, I don't see inflationary pressures. I see France shutting down. I see Germany shutting down. I see the Netherlands. I think the Netherlands, I think I read something last night. They're maxed out on hospital space, and they're talking about completely shutting down. And if things don't change drastically in the next week, they're going to be in the same situation that Italy was during their peak crisis, where they had to basically triage people saying, you're sick, you should be here, but I don't have any beds left, you need to go home, right? They're getting to that stage as well. So none of those things bode well for inflation. So gold and silver, both of these, even though we're rallying up because of the U.S. election, I don't know. I mean, right now, if you track with the polls and the election comes out the way a lot of the polls are saying, as of tomorrow, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Like I said, I think there will be talk of big stimulus, but I'm kind of surprised that we haven't heard that yet. We'll see. Again, a lot of it depends on how he turns out. But 24.42, 24.75, I think are decent sell areas, especially on the hourly. 4-hour wise, you can see that again. This 25 to 25, 35-ish. Again, turned away. A lot of turnaround. And really, after we get out of this kind of sideways channel, we got nothing clean up here to 27.30. So a lot of movement over there. Let me drag oil in because oil has been a bit of an interesting nut in the last 2 weeks. Let's see. Don't need this. Hold on, let me bring it over. There we go. Boom. All right, so oil last week we watched kind of here. Let me go a little bit higher. We'll go to 4 hours. Oil, this is what we had last week. Drop. What happened was I think oil got a bit too negative. Now you can see we had two different areas, and again, we had one pullback and a push all the way down. We missed the entry on the downside to be able to take this one back up again. And I'd actually drawn this, looking for this to kind of retrace back over to the side again. This was dealing with a measured move on a larger, like on a daily time frame. What I did was I took a daily time frame here, and I said, hey, listen, if you look at this, and again, excuse all the lines in here, but here was the first major drop we had in oil, right? To there. If you take this, you can say, well, wait a second, that was the exact same drop, just a little bit off that we had here. Okay, well, what was the measured move? Well, I did the same thing, and I took the measured move from here to here, and whoops, from there to there, and then what I did is I just brought it across. So basically, it had projected oil would come back up into the 41.65 area. And again, so far, we are trying to do our darndest to get back up there. What have we seen thus far? We finally broke through the top. Right? We saw the touch here, the touch here, the touch here, the base, the come over. And again, the Harry Potter trade, the punch through, the pullback, and then the launch itself higher. Now, again, we're running into some sellers. Again, this is kind of uncertainty right now with the election. Okay? One candidate is pro-oil. One candidate is the exact opposite. They are definitely anti-oil, right? They want to get us off oil and everything else. And, I mentioned last week that it's a very interesting situation because the U.S. is the #1 exporter of oil in the world. You just said you wanted to kill that. That would kill the #1 export for the U.S. or an industry that we lead. Like that's kind of a strange statement to make when we are the leader of oil, exportation. So I don't know. It's a big industry. So with that said, again, I think this re-rally was justified. Will it hold here? I don't know. Areas where I'm looking for if we go higher that I'd be willing to start taking sells in. I mean, obviously right now you're seeing some chop, but I mean clean levels are going to be up here at this 38.90 to 39 range, right? We saw some basing, a nice little pullback, and that kind of ignited a launch. We have a little bit of testing up here at 39.70. So there's some decent things a bit higher, dropping it real low to the small time frames. You can see, look at the chop back and forth. I mean, we've been going from 38.20 down to about 37.50. And again, these are 15-minute candles. So this is pretty violent movement back and forth. And again, not surprised it hit this area to kind of roll over. One thing that in looking at this chart that I will say, hey, listen, this is, I do like this. Look at the way, and again, let me take a rectangle here. This is a big area right here. Let me change this to green. Not that green. That green is fine. This is a parabolic move. If we're able to come through and if these sellers eventually do collapse, there's a nice little short trade in here as well. The way you're going to find this one, though, is you're going to look down and see what type of basing level occurs. Again, when we come down, if we base here, that's going to be what the sign is that, hey, listen, we need to get short. Now, you want to make sure you get at least 1 to 3 inside of this one, which would put us approximately, 3.7, right there, 2.99 is close enough. It would look something along those lines, so I'm okay with this one short. The profit target is fine. Remember, there is oil inventory reports, and last week it was interesting. It was a negative number, should have been great for oil, and oil went straight down, again, based off of comments from one of the candidates. So I don't know. I think right now I'd keep this on my radar. I don't see this being the biggest mover today. I do feel, though, as we get some confirmation about who the next president is going to be, I do think if we come down to this level, we base here around this 37.50. I would expect this one to kind of continue to push and then drop to the downside. So, that's the biggie in there. As far as kind of the plays for the day. So, I mean, those are the three indices. Those are the dollar. Those are the commodities, gold, oil, and silver. The only thing that I'd watch out for, let me see, let me pull this up real quick. Where is it? I can't find it. Tonight, there's a small release. I would pretty much ignore this one. I wouldn't, there's not much to focus on with New Zealand right now. Even though their unemployment rate is starting to skyrocket again, I think at this point, the 5 o'clock window, we're going to be getting kind of confirmations for East Coast totals at that point. Even though the polls aren't closed, we're going to start seeing that. And so we're going to start getting some movement. In the overnight as well, there's nothing, but there is some ADP non-farm employment change tomorrow morning. As you can see, this is positive. It is lower than what the previous forecast was before, right? But it is a positive number. And again, employment change getting, staying positive is important. Having it be less than before is not so much. The reason I'm mentioning this is because if this is a miss to the top side, say we come in at 700,000 new jobs, that could be a stabilization point and a big push higher tomorrow in the indices. And again, a great way to play it. As well as ISM services. Now, ISM could be good, may not be good. We'll see. Like I said, this one is, you can see, they've been a little bit overly negative. But I will say, we could have a nice day in the markets for the indices tomorrow if this ADP number at 815 is good. And then we have a miss to the top side for ISM services PMI. Both of those could give us a little bit of the jump, the oomph that we kind of need. And remember, seeing moves like this, these tend to all retrace, okay? When all these moves have happened more or less in the last 6 to 12 hours, and this is over one daily ATR, expect retracement. So I think there's a lot in there. Besides that, guys, that's all we have today. Like I said, I'm not going to dive into all the different currency pairs. With the election, any of the type of intraday analysis that we would do even for the week, again, it's all for naught because, again, there can be absolutely extreme movement today. I'm going to leave you guys with this, though. Make sure any positions that you take, if you are trading today, and like I said, if you are, I know a lot of people that skip election days or, the 24 hours around there because of the extreme volatility. If you are trading, make sure your stop losses are in. Make sure you're understanding that the risk that you're taking with every single one of your positions, because like I said, it's 12 noon now. The next kind of 12 to, I guess the next 12 hours, that'll have all the polls closed in the United States, I think, minus Hawaii, all right? There can be absolutely extreme moves. So just make sure you guys are protected. And remember, your first priority as a trader is to protect your trading capital, not to take over, not to take risky trades. So again, Nadex is perfect for that. You can use Nadex for it. And as the disclaimer says, you can lose up to, take a loss on the trade up to what you paid to get into the trade, including fees. So just remember that when you're placing any of these trades. With that said, guys, I'm going to let you guys go. Remember, next week we'll be back to our regularly scheduled program. We will analyze all our indices, our commodities, as well as all our currency pairs to look for intraday trades. Today just didn't seem like it made sense with the election. So with that, I will flick it back over. If you do have any questions about anything I said, like I said, it was quick. I know that election special more than anything else. Again, next week, regularly scheduled time, Eastern Standard Time at noon. If you have questions, the best way to reach me is the support@keeptradingsimple.com. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you next week.